It's the Ross Tucker Football Podcast.
Oh, yeah, it is. But it's not just any Ross Tucker Football Podcast. It is a Monster Monday, presented, of course, by DraftKings. It is a new week. We will have new shows for you all week. I will be traveling later on this week, so you're not going to get fresh Tuck's takes on Wednesday and Thursday, but you will have some awesome interviews with Sean Merriman as well as Greg Cosell. Can't wait for you guys to hear those. Today is the last interviews we had from the Super Bowl, from Radio Row, Media Night, Opening Night, whatever they call it. I got a chance to talk with a lot of players, a lot of coaches, including really good special teams coordinator for the Chiefs, Dave Toub, as well as Jeremiah Washburn, who used to be an offensive line coach. Now he's the edge rusher coach for the Eagles. They had 3 edge rushers get double-digit sacks last year. So I really think you guys are going to enjoy those conversations almost as much as I enjoy Labatt Blue Light. Tomorrow is 4th of July. What is more American than drinking some Labatt Blue Lights with your friends and living life to the power of we? Always enjoy responsibly. Beer, Labatt USA, Buffalo, New York. We got 2 interviews today. We'll start with Dave Toub. It's Big Show time.
The Big Show.
Talking with one of the best assistant coaches in the NFL. He's the assistant head coach, special teams coach of the Kansas City Chiefs, Dave Toub. Coach, great to have you on the show. Thank you so much.
Yeah, this is awesome, isn't it? This is awesome. Can't believe it.
All right, couple things. First of all, you don't know this. My career ended on special teams. Washington 07 4-man wedge against the Ravens.
Those are the days.
Herniated C5, C6 in my neck, bruised my spinal cord, and the doctor was like, "You're 28, you went to Princeton, get a real job." But back in the day, like, 4-man wedge was a real thing. Yeah.
Were you on the wedge, or were you coming down the field blowing up the
No,
wedge?
no, I was on the wedge.
Oh, you were
I was on the wedge.
Okay,
because the kid, it was a linebacker for the Ravens who got, like, I separated it. Like, I thought I got the better of it. But I got up and my whole arm went numb. It's actually crazy how many years they had the wedge.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. I mean, we had some collisions out there. We had a guy named Izzy Adonijay. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah, 71.
Number 71. Everybody said, man, watch out for 71, because he would go down there and just blow dudes up. He would knock himself out.
So I remember being in the meetings, and they would tell us, you can't get split.
Yeah.
And then they'd be telling the wedge busters, you got to split it. Yeah, like there's, you can't do both.
Something's going to give. There was a lot of bad collisions out there. It was very dangerous.
What's changed the most special teams since I played? Like the last 15 years or so?
Probably, the idea of making it more safe. I mean, that's, and it's really a good thing at the end of the day. So I was part of a committee that, really changed the rules on kickoff. With the new rules that you see now, you have to have certain, you can't have a running start on kickoff. And you have to have so many guys in the setup zone. And it's really helped.
Do you feel like it's made special teams less important?
No. I think it's keeping it relevant, really. It's
Well,
keeping it in the game.
I guess for me it's like...
There was a group of people that they wanted it out.
Right.
So our job was to keep it in the game.
I guess it feels like compared to back in the day, you feel like there's so many touchbacks and so many fair catches. It used to be more action, I felt like.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we were kicking off from the 30. It was harder to get a touchback. There was more action before. I mean, there was no question. Guys would come out deeper. They don't come out anymore as much.
Yeah.
Safety's a big deal, but as long as we can keep kicking in the game, I think that's a good thing.
But now also people are trying to have the ball come down inside the 5 and make them bring it out, right?
Sure. Oh, yeah. Kickers are so good now. They can hang it up, get it over a 4-0 hang time, come down on the 5-yard line and make you come out and get them inside the 20. Sometimes that's a strategy, and it's a good strategy if you could do it, if you have a kicker that can do it.
So 2 questions that people ask a lot is like, why don't punters kick the ball out of bounds more? And punters tell me it's harder than you think it is.
It really is.
Can you explain?
I know it's harder because I had Devin Hester when I was in Chicago, and teams would try to kick it out of bounds all the time.
Why is it so hard?
Well, because
you're trying to get as much
yardage as you can. So, I mean, a guy can sit there and turn and just kick it straight out of bounds for a 5-yard gross.
Right.
You know, but you want to try to get as much yardage as you can. And with that combination of trying to get as much yardage and angling it out of bounds, guys make the mistake and it ends up coming inbounds. And that's when
How many years did you have Devin?
I had Devin his whole, I left. 12 I left. I had him for 6 years.
Best that ever did it?
Best that ever did it. Hopefully he gets
Hall of Famer?
I hope so. We're going to find out
so
soon. He just was so strong. He was great vision, great speed, and just great anticipation. Like his instincts were just off the charts.
So you got a lot of hype as being a great special teams coordinator when he was there.
He helped me.
Did you make him great or did he make you great?
He made me great. I can admit it. He made me great.
No, so how many guys, when I was playing, there was a good 5 or 6 core special teamers, like core 4 that every team would carry.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem like that as much anymore. Is it like 3 or 4 guys they'll give a team now?
Yes, there's 3 guys. There's about 3 guys per team. And
there used to be more, right?
There used to be more.
Okay.
There used to be more. But now, those guys got to play offense and defense. They get so much play. So that becomes more of a bigger factor. So it's all worked in.
What else has changed on teams? Obviously, you can't do the wedge and stuff. So how many different returns are there that you can have, like on a kick return?
We'll go into a game with 5 or 6 returns. Another thing that's changed is the kickers and punters have gotten so good.
It's unbelievable.
I mean, they are so good. I mean, if you're not 80%, you're not a good punter.
The other thing is, Dave, I did your game against the Raiders. Like, the Raiders punter and kicker are huge.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of these guys are big dudes.
I got big guys, too. Butker's tall.
Yes.
Butker's tall, and I have Tommy Townsend, who's a tall guy.
Yeah.
And my long snapper's athletic, too. I mean, he runs a 4.5, James Winchester. So,
right. It didn't used to be that the kickers and punters were all this big and this good.
Yeah, and the long snappers, too. I mean, they have to be able to run because now they don't have to worry about – they don't get knocked like they used to. You can't even touch a snapper anymore.
So has that led to lighter long snappers that can run?
Lighter long snappers that can cover a kick, speed. They have to be accurate with the snaps. But they're all more athletes, better athletes.
You've gotten head coaching interviews.
I had 5 interviews.
5 years in a row?
No, I've had 5 overall.
Okay.
Over my career, I haven't had one in a while. I'm 60 now.
How does that happen, by the way?
How does it happen?
How does it happen that you get interviews and all of a sudden, you didn't forget?
You're a hot guy.
You didn't get worse as a coach.
No, I was in the hot spot. I was the age. I was, lower 50s. And,
right.
Getting a little bit of pub. And had some good units.
Right.
I had a chance. And then somebody interviews you. One team, Miami was the first one to interview me. And then other teams said, hey, let me check that guy out.
Right.
That's how it happens.
But I would think, with the Harbaugh success, more special teams coordinators would get interviews. I don't think one guy has this offseason. I know.
Massachi got one.
Oh, that's right.
Massachi got one at the Colts, I think I read.
A little bit different since he was the guy with the Raiders. He was the interim guy with the Raiders last year.
It's successful.
That was a terrible decision.
I was surprised he didn't get a shot at it. He did such a good job.
Yeah.
I mean, he went through there was some turmoil.
Oh, my gosh. It was a small sample size, and it was a really good sample size.
Yeah, no question.
I mean, they made the playoffs and everything.
Well, I guess that's why you got an interview this year.
Do you like it more, less, or the same? Coaching.
Oh, I love it. I mean, these guys keep me young. I don't feel old until I look in the mirror or I see myself on television. But right now I feel like a young guy that's just I'm ready to do this for maybe 10 more years.
Oh, that's awesome. Coach, thank you so much for the time. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Always interesting to talk with a coach like Coach Toub and just figure out the special teams part of it. It's the one thing that nobody ever really talks about. When you're leading into a season, nobody calls into the radio station to talk about special teams unless there's a major mistake. Speaking of that, by the way, if you made a major mistake at some point when you bought the house, or if you've noticed there's major mistakes in your bathrooms, you got to do what I did. At least talk to the people at West Shore Home. In just one day, they tore out both of our old upstairs baths, replaced them with a beautiful new shower, fresh new bath. It literally brightens the room. I don't even know how else to describe it. I've told you this before. I'll tell you again. Go to westshorehome.com/Ross just to see the before and after pictures and just to see the before and after videos, because they can do a whole lot better than I can explaining it here on a podcast. You got to look at it, and you can get a free estimate, by the way, when you do that. And right now, they're also doing free installations. So it's westshorehome.com/Ross, westshorehome.com/Ross. Plus, I want to go against you in our Fantasy Feast Best Ball League. So get the free estimate, email it to me, ross@rosstucker.com, so you can be in our July Best Ball draft. It's time for Jeremiah Washburn.
The Big Show.
All right, I'm talking with Eagles outside linebacker coach Jeremiah Washburn, who back in the day was an O-line coach.
Yes,
I still remember talking to you after you guys got robbed against the Cowboys in the playoffs when you were in Detroit.
Yeah, that was a brutal game.
That was rough, man.
That was a tough one.
That was rough.
We thought we had a team. We had a really good team that year. That was a tough one.
All right, so let's do your background, though, because I think it's really interesting to go from being an offensive line coach to being an edge rusher coach. And I think my listeners would find that interesting. So you played O-line in college.
I did.
And were you always coaching that ever since college?
Well,
and by the way, your dad's famous D-line coach.
Yeah. So I was I was actually a scout for 6 years. I was with Baltimore and then got into
right
coaching.
out of college, or right?
I was, yeah,
okay.
right with the Ravens.
Okay.
For about 6 years, and then went into coaching with Jim Schwartz. I was assistant O-line coach in Detroit. And then,
okay, so before you get into that, how much did the scouting stuff help coaching?
Everything. I mean, being able to evaluate.
In what way? Yeah.
Well, I mean, one is big picture, being able to have empathy for the big picture and kind of the overview. We were taught so well in Baltimore with Ozzie and Phil Savage and DaCosta and that whole crew that you feel pretty equipped to evaluate players. So that helped quite a bit. And just being able to constantly evaluate your own group helped quite a bit.
When you say big picture, do you mean like, so I was on teams where the coaches really didn't care that much about maybe the practice squad guys or the inactive guys because they were heavily focused on that Sunday, and maybe rightfully so.
Right.
Your scouting background, does it help you to understand that you're trying to develop every guy that you have?
Absolutely, yes. That was such a big deal with us in Baltimore. And then when I went with Schwartz, with Coach Schwartz in Detroit, that was such a big deal for us as well, was developing our own. And
did you know him from Baltimore?
He actually, a little bit, he and my dad coached together in Tennessee.
That's right,
so
that's
that was
right.
the connection with Coach Schwartz, yeah.
And what'd you get hired there?
Assistant offensive line under George Yarno, who passed away from cancer a couple years ago. And Scott Linehan was the offensive coordinator. We had a good run there. And then I was retained by Jim Caldwell, and then kind of navigated some paths as an O-line coach with the Dolphins and the Bears, and then back to the Dolphins. And then when we were let go with Adam in 2018, I thought it was going to be kind of a bridge year. I wanted my daughter to graduate high school in Florida. So I kind of had a bridge year as like a consultant with the Eagles. And then Schwartzy asked me to be the D-line coach in 2020. So Matt Burke and I coached the group in 2020, and I was retained by Coach Gannon in 2021.
So when Schwartz knows you as an O-line coach, and he comes up and says D-line coach, you had never coached D-line, right?
No, and I said no. And then he called.
No, that doesn't mean you can't do it. I just think that's interesting that he thought that highly of you.
He was great with it too. He's very convincing. Anybody that knows Jim knows that he's pretty good at that stuff. So I just said, no, Jim, I don't have that background. And he said, come on, man, it's the same thing. And honestly, Ross, it is. I mean, the fundamentals are so similar. I mean, hand placement, pad level, effort, toughness.
Helmet in the right place?
Yeah, all those things. And precision, timing with games is no different than timing in the run game. All of those things are so important. You have to drill it over and over. So it's shocking how many similarities there are.
I know I've talked to you about this before, but when I was in New England Like Matt Patricia, for example, was the O-line coach, assistant O-line coach.
That's right.
And then they flipped it. And Belichick always starts guys on the opposite side of where he wants them to end up. So how much was being an O-line coach for as long as you've been, how helpful has that been to you being a D-line coach now?
Well, that's given me credibility in the room, and I'm pretty fortunate that the guys that were there wanted that information. They wanted that knowledge. You know, with Fletch, BG, Sweaty, you know, the crew, Derek Barnett, the crew that was there when I got there, and then, you know, guys like Reddick and the new crew have been great with that. They love the information. They use it. They apply it. And so it's really worked out pretty well.
So I feel like I would love to do that. Like I would love to just look at O-lineman and be like, man, I'm telling you, I think he's susceptible to power. Or I think his outside hand, whatever it is, right?
Absolutely.
Because you did that for 10 years or however long you did that. You've been breaking it down.
It's so funny, Ross. Like it was 11 years, and you'd be stunned how many of my old players will text me like rush games, you know, or say, hey, attack so-and-so's outside hand. You know, because I think we're all suffering pass rushers. Like now that you can flip the table a little bit, it is. I mean, God, I just got a text from Josh Sitton a couple of days ago about something like that. So they all look at that through that lens.
So obviously this year, Hassan Reddick had an unbelievable year.
He did.
We're talking here at opening night of the Super Bowl before the game, but I'm probably not going to air this till after. What did people miss about him that people didn't realize he was this good?
Yeah, so I was actually, ironically, the offensive line coach in Chicago when we had him in the Senior Bowl. And even then, you know, it was a struggle to say, is he a Mike, inside backer? Is he an edge guy? Because he doesn't fit that mold, but...
What does he weigh?
He's, you know, 240s.
Okay.
I would say, I mean, that's where he plays. He's not super tall. He's not super long, but
he's good against the run, too.
Very good, very good. He, you know, he generates a lot of force with his speed. You know, and his mentality, he's so tough. I mean, he's a Camden guy, and he embraced the way we play here in a big way, early and often. So he's played the run really well despite whatever, you know, misconception we might have about his size. But yeah, I think that's the biggest thing is he doesn't fit that traditional role of an edge guy.
And if so the concern with him is that he wasn't big enough to play the edge and be able to set the edge, right?
Right.
Like and so Arizona played him off the ball as a result, but that's not, he's an edge guy.
He's an edge guy, and he's special at it too. Yeah, I don't know what happened, you know, at previous stops, but man, we're sure glad we have him.
Yeah. So, just what are the things that impress you the most? Is it the power? Is it speed to power? Is it his hands? Like, what are the things my listeners like to learn more? So, what are the type of things you talk to about not just him, but any pass rusher?
Well, he's kind of like a Mike Trout, you know, like a five-tool player. Like he's got it all. You know, that was the thing that we were most pleasantly surprised about was his power. Like he's really strong, and it was one of those things. I think I was holding a bag pretty early, and you felt that, you know, and I thought, wow, we've got something. So he's really got all of those things, and we're blessed with. We've kind of got a Baskin Robbins of defensive ends right now with him and Sweaty J and BG, Rob Quinn, Pat Johnson, you know, that crew. They're all a little bit different and offer something a little bit different as rushers.
Yeah, I think it's I love the stuff you guys did this year with the 5 down. And so often the guys knowing they got a pretty good chance that they're going to have a one-on-one before the snap.
They love that stuff. They do.
Are people changing it up? Because when I played, if it's 5 down, it's 5 down. It's one-on-one. Are people sliding at all? Turning?
They are, yeah. That's a week-to-week thing. Not to go too far into that, Ross, but you and I both know, like...
You either 5 down or you turn it.
You do, and that's, you kind of... People do different stuff nowadays, and that's where the league, I would say, as you were getting out of it, that's where I feel like the league was going, you know, and especially like what New England was doing with their 5 down stuff was dangerous. And so I think the more that you can isolate guys one-on-one, I always hated that as an offensive line coach. So you always go to the stuff that you would hate.
Totally agree. Because also, if they're rushing 3 or 4, they don't know where the help's going.
That's right.
So they rush differently. If they hear the center say 5 down, and they know we're man to man, then they know they have a two-way go. Like the guards are in a bad spot, and the center.
Yeah, they are. And I've had some nightmare games. I can remember. Gosh, I coached one of the best centers that probably never went to a Pro Bowl, in Dominic Raiola. And gosh, I remember we played Dallas in 2010, and you remember Jay Ratliff was as the nose. Oh my gosh! And it was, what do you do? Because DeMarcus is out there, and they've got Anthony Spencer and Marcus Spears, and these 5 guys, and you had no choice. You had to slide, or you had to 5-0, and you couldn't slide it. Leave your back on one of those guys. So those were a nightmare at that time, and it still is for a lot of teams.
Jeremiah, thank you so much for coming on the show, man. Really appreciate it.
Anytime, Ross. Anytime, man.
I really am a believer in the cross-training like that. Like, I think it'd be cool if I was a coach now to be a defensive quality control guy and just to try to scheme up blitzes to attack certain protections. I mentioned best ball earlier in the show. All you have to do to start playing best ball is download the DraftKings app using code Ross. Enter the DraftKings Best Ball Millionaire Contest. You do a snake draft. And then each week during the season, this is what the beauty is of best ball. They automatically put your best players in the lineup. You don't need to worry about injuries or inactives or any of that stuff. The teams with the most points by the end of the season will have a shot to take home the $1 million top prize. What are you waiting for? Head to the DraftKings app, sign up with code RAW, start playing best ball today, join the DraftKings $10 million best ball tournament, and you'll get your first entry back in DraftKings dollars only on DraftKings with code ROSS.
Tux Takes.
All right, Ross, a lot of news to get to. Patriots signed linebacker Juwan Bentley to a 2-year, $18.75 million contract extension. Panthers signed defensive lineman Taylor Stallworth. Rams signed quarterback Ahkello Witherspoon. Jags left tackle Cam Robinson has been officially suspended 4 games for his PED usage.
Interesting to see the Patriots getting a bunch of guys signed to extensions before 4th of July. They got Devontae Parker, now Bentley. Stallworth's always been a solid run stuffer inside. Witherspoon's kind of bounced around. And Cam Robinson, man, if Anton Harrison plays really well those first 4 games, Robinson just voided all of his guaranteed money. Yikes, not good.
A lot of layoffs at ESPN who have let go of Steve Young, Susie Colbert, Todd McShay, Keyshawn Johnson, Matt Hasselbeck, and more.
Right. Yeah, I hate seeing this. All good people. Most of them have been with ESPN a long time. They've had terrific careers, made a lot of money, good for them. But this is the way it works at times, I guess, in corporate America. They need to cut costs somewhere, and those are the costs that they decide to cut. I guess it's one reason why I kind of like that I have like a diversified media portfolio, if that makes sense, having a bunch of different gigs.
Titans running back Hassan Haskins was charged with aggravated assault via strangulation.
I never know what to say about things like this other than just awful. We'll see as more details come out, but just awful. Can you imagine having that associated with your name or your family? Just bad.
The NFL announced season-long suspensions for Isaiah Rodgers and Rashad Berry, who the Colts promptly cut. Titans also lose offensive tackle Nicholas Petit-Frere for 6 games for betting in the team facility.
So this is going to be my Labatt take, Jack, presented by Labatt Blue Light, the pristine Canadian Pilsner. Enjoy your beers together so you can live life to the power of we. Always enjoy responsibly. Beer. Labatt USA, Buffalo, New York. 3 things on the NFL players and betting. Number 1, I don't understand the rules. I don't understand why they made them as complex as they needed to. And it seems like some teams in particular, the Lions, the Colts, didn't do a really good job with the messaging. But I have a better idea from both the NFL level and the player level. How about just don't bet? How about just don't bet? I mean, it's like 3 to 10 years of your life. We weren't allowed to bet when I played. Even if you're betting on other sports, you start losing. That could lead to potentially some bad outcomes as well. How about just don't bet? And also, by the way, there's over 2,000 players that don't seem to have any issue with the rules. Other than that, Jack, I think we're done here, man.
Thanks for listening to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. Make sure to also subscribe to the Fantasy Feast, Even Money, Business of Sports, and College Draft. All available at Apple Podcasts, rosstucker.com, or wherever podcasts can be found.
Time for some shout-outs. How about Pizza Boy Brewing? Delicious. Of course, you got my boys over at Sporticulture, HumanHeadNYC.com, SteakhouseSports.com, Go-Bengals.com, Evergreen Economics, BackOfficeScheduler.com, and MyFrontPageStory.com.